Do, reflect, repeat. The classic rhythm of a cyclic development process. Now, retrospective meetings, are one tool which you might use, some methods use them, some methods don't, of enabling group reflection upon the process. And that's why so many people do them in so many different ways, because there's no one right way to do it. There's not a correct way. There is merely and most appropriate one for your current circumstances. Now, the problem with, if you're tasked with arranging or facilitating a retrospective, is that actually you want this to be a participatory meeting. You want the people who are committed, not just involved, to the process, to step up and prevent leadership. This is an opportunity for them to actually present points of view which they might not otherwise be able to do, and it's your job to listen to them. Now, of course, this stuff which you need to do to prepare to ensure a good meeting, and yes, you can facilitate this, but you need to think methodologically and psychologically about what you're doing. Sometimes high ceremony works. You might propose lots of rules or tasks or ideas or techniques which people need to do within the meeting, within a retrospective. There's a whole heap of them, so I won't go through them, if that's most appropriate. Over time, teams accumulate ceremony, and retrospectives, if you do it over time and they're successful, will accumulate ceremony. Stuff which is done because it's done. It's a formal step as part of the bonding of the group. However, you've also got to be aware that too much ceremony and too little innovation may actually make it ossified and make change hard. So you might be looking for new ideas to bring into retrospectives. Physical props are particularly useful in this case. Physical props in general are really good for changing stuff because people behave differently with actual objects. You might understand at an intellectual level, but when you're presented with it physically, well, other parts of the brain take over and it feels differently. Now, for a good retrospective, it's all about the feeling which you facilitate in your team. If your team feels comfortable, protected, and we're encouraged to speak out and speak their mind in a measured sort of way about the appropriate topics, and that's good. Now, before a meeting, you need to think in terms of potential psychological impediments. If you're worried it's going to turn into a blame session, take that blame session outside. Do something first about it. If you're really worried, talk to people individually and let them, if they really need to blame people, but do it individually away from the psychology of the unit, and then explain to them how you actually see this retrospective working. If, for example, you don't have an appropriate meeting space, make one, find one. There's always somewhere, some nook and corner, which you can take over, just for a short period. If you're worried about time, feel a comfortable time slot where everybody's happy with. And that might mean at the start of a process being willing to change it. In fact, one of the earliest retrospectives might actually be, hey, how are we going to do retrospectives? That's a legitimate question. So you need to think more broadly about facilitating useful feedback when you're running an iterative process. It's almost essential. Feedback is an essential part of the iterative loop. Your code won't grow, your developers won't grow, your team members won't grow, and you won't grow unless you get that feedback. We all need it. So put some thought into doing it right. Or, if not right, appropriately, should I say.